Robb Braun, where is your song? Where is your song, Robb Braun?
When I was a boy, I didn't have any particular gifts or skills. Didn't know what they were. Wasn't even sure what my interests were. But I had a song. My song was my gentleness. I was a sweet little kid. And I learned just how to be, it felt right to be gentle with everybody. I grew up in an area where we grew up around Navajo Indians. I learned very early on to say Yatahe. Every time we'd be downtown Flagstaff, when I'd see the natives there, I'd go Yatahe, and they'd smile at me and they'd wave back. It was a greeting hello. And that seemed natural to me. That was my song. And my song was anything that made me feel alive, that felt worthy, that I knew was who I was. That was my song. And I remember, still today, singing that song without reservation. Without reservation. Until I learned that for some that couldn't hear my song or understand my song, it was not okay to sing my song. Fellow guests, each of you had a song when you were a child. As a boy or a girl, there was a part of you that was pure, that was innocent, that had something reverberate inside your body that felt safe, that felt right, that defined you. It's who you were. Until somewhere along the way, someone got uncomfortable with your music because they didn't understand it. They didn't understand you. And they began to let you know it was not okay. They began to let you know in some ways, and maybe it was a little more gentle, like, that's silly, you act in that way. Or you can't do anything like that when you grow up. That's not how others do it. And some may have outright said, be quiet. You're making too much noise. And you and I learn how to survive in the world. That's what we're great at doing. We learn how to survive. We learned that it was not safe to sing that song. It was not safe to let who we were naturally be. And we learned ways to counter that. We learned ways to not let that out. We learned ways to be quiet and not have others be uncomfortable with who we were and what our song was. But when we can hear the song and we're trying to be someone where we're not, it's too painful. It's way too painful. So what we learn to do for survival's sake is we learn to turn the volume all the way down until we can't hear the song anymore. And then we have learned to comply and go along with what others would have us be so they can be comfortable with themselves. And this is how we grow up. Through adolescence, we learn to turn the volume down, turn the volume down, turn the volume down, until we're finally safe enough to be out there with the rest of the world. And we learn and we grow into adulthood this way. We've all done it. Now the story goes that you take a grasshopper and put a grasshopper in a glass jar. This grasshopper will hop out of that jar just as quick as it goes in the jar. It's what it's born to do, bred to do. They say if we put a lid on that, that grasshopper is going to bang up against that lid and hurt itself until finally it realizes, I can't jump any higher than this. This hurts, by the way. And out of survival, what it does is it learns to time its jump so it comes just short of the lid of that jar. They say, once that happens and we remove the lid off that jar, that grasshopper never again jumps higher than the height of that jar. Permanently conditioned. Permanently silence the song. And some of us on the planet have done just that. We allowed ourselves to get silenced. We turned the volume down so we could get along and survive our world because we need to belong and need to connect and need to be approved by others. Some of us never went back and turned the volume up. Now what happens in life is we go along with life and we're doing what we're supposed to do because it's accepted. We're doing what we're supposed to do because it helps us to feel a part of. But then something happens, and it's happened to every one of you in this room. We hear a hint of the music we heard as a child. And the moment we hear it, we know exactly what it is. Now, it may have been through our own child or another child that we've witnessed being in their song, being in their glory, being in their music. It may have been watching a film like Dead Poets Society, and hear Mr. Keating say to the boys, as he's quoting a play about life, and he says, life is a play, and you may contribute a verse. And he says again, life, the powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be? And that song is awakened again, because we remember our music real well when it goes back to it. And it may have been for some of you standing in this room right here, seeing other people stand up here and express themselves and stretch themselves and be what they've been daring to be. And maybe that's been the same for you. Maybe you've discovered a part of yourself and rediscovered that song. But once we hear the volume, once we hear that, now we've got a real powerful choice to make in life. Am I going to let the volume continue to rise, or am I going to turn it back down? Because I learned very early on, silence is what's going to help me be accepted. Silence is what's going to help me to survive. And there may be some people today that may not be okay with my music. There are some of you today that are not okay with my presentation today. And that's okay. Some of you are waiting to bust out and turn that volume wide up on your song and dance. And you're waiting for permission somewhere outside of you. And the cool thing is once I dare to turn that volume up and dance, I and you inspire others to do the same. So my invitation to each of you is, if you're sitting there at the volume knob and you're not sure if it's really safe to turn that baby up, my invitation to you is to go for it. Is to turn that volume up and dance. And when you dance, I will be inspired. And you give me permission to turn the volume up on my song and to sing as loud as I can in my own voice, my own way, my own style. You may or may not understand it. That's okay. I may not understand yours. That's okay too. But I learn from you and I'm inspired by you. Where is your song?